Ken Marks is here this morning. Ken, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yes, and of course, normally, of course, the Marx's Hannibal History Museum, historic Hannibal tours. But as Ken said just before we open the mics, it is all steampunk all the time these days for you guys.
Well, yes, because we're getting a little bit close to a deadline. 3.5 weeks is no time at all. And we're getting set up for the Big River Steampunk Festival. And it's going to be just off of Main Street, really, on August 30th and 31st, Labor Day weekend. And we're really excited about it. This is not hyperbole, but from what we can tell, this is going to be the first continuing steampunk festival or convention in Missouri. We're going to beat St. Louis by about 6-7 months to this. And hopefully we'll beat them out in the long run, because most of what happens in a city like St. Louis, you go into a hotel room and you get to do a lot of costume play like you would in fancy conventions or Comic-Cons, as they call them. But then, that's mostly what you do. And this is different. We're actually trying to do this as a festival, something interactive with a lot of entertainment. And so this is kind of different compared to what you'd normally see at a steampunk event.
And we've talked about this before when it comes to this kind of thing, celebrating the Gilded Age, the Victorian era, and to try to do that in Hannibal in a hotel room would just be a crime.
Well, we're also blessed with having so many great architectural buildings that when we start bringing in people who are part of these steampunk associations or just tourists from around the country and around the region into Hannibal, they just marvel at these buildings. I mean, who cares if they're not perfectly restored yet? They are just fascinated. These buildings are still here, the shape, the scope. You don't see these things in other small towns around Missouri, especially. Not the type of work that we were able to create here in our heyday. And that seems to inspire things like steampunk. After all, this is it is kind of a creative art in a way to get involved with steampunk. It is a do-it-yourself type of hobby, I guess you'd say. But at the same time, you have to have a strong knowledge of history, of architecture. And so it kind of feeds into that. This is a kind of way for people who love history but don't know how to really express it. This is the great avenue for them.
Yeah. And of course, we've been trying, ever since the news of this thing called steampunk coming to Hannibal, to come up with a proper definition of steampunk, and Lisa pretty well summed it up the last time she was here, summing it up as let's see, Victorian science fiction was kind of the short explanation. So Ken, what if somebody asks you what is steampunk, what do you tell them?
Well, I get so many questions about that, I probably would have to give the 3-word answer. But it's also an idea of alternate history. There's a whole faction of people out there who get into that genre. And the idea is, okay, what if we turned right instead of a left at this moment in history? What would have logically happened at the end of all that? We have the same things we have today, just made out of different parts. What would that really look like? And so that's where the knowledge of history comes into it, And so, yeah, it's Victorian science fiction. It's also alternate history. And at the same time, it's also science fiction in the sense of traditional science fiction. People who love old Jules Verne, H.G. Wells, even Mark Twain did a sci-fi book. It was called The Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court. And that's actually pretty influential in the steampunk world.
Ah, okay. So another reason. I mean, it seems like
another Twain connection.
Imagine that. Yeah, I know. Yeah, the Hannibal History Museum was born to highlight things other than Mark Twain, but sure enough. But it seems like just looking around at Facebook and that sort of thing, it seems like the steampunk community has just really embraced the opportunity to come to Hannibal and be a part of this.
Yeah, we were pleasantly surprised. I mean, the minute we put, not quite the minute, but let's say an hour after we put a Facebook page together, we were already getting likes from, say, Wichita, Springfield, Illinois, Omaha, Nebraska, a lot of different groups from around the Midwest, and even as far east as Ohio so far. Facebook page we have is at least 1,000 likes. I think it's inching up towards 1,100 already, and we're getting good responses. We have a good list of vendors already for our Midway that's going to be held just kind of across from the the trolley company and the garden over at the corner of Bird and Main, and that's also we're going to have a lot of entertainment. So people who usually go to these have to pay a ticket price to get anything, and really for ours, a lot of it is free.
Mm-hmm. So talk about when the people come Saturday and Sunday of Labor Day weekend to the Steampunk Festival. Give us a kind of an overview of what they're going to find when they come.
Okay. Well, first of all, we're gearing a lot of the vendors that we have on what we call the Midway for steampunk. So we're really trying to winnow in. So, you won't see 100 tents along Main Street or anything like that. In fact, we're going to keep Main Street clear, keep all the streets clear because, we want more traffic. We want people to come through. And at the same time, Midway, the vendors that we are going to have are going to be geared much more towards strictly steampunk or something directly associated with steampunk. So, and in between all that, we have an MC, Beard and Bean. It's a steampunk comedy duo. They're coming. They're going to be doing steampunk music, and it's kind of a unique blend of rock and traditional roots music, a mix of everything. And in between those, we have small shows going on. We'll have a magic show. We have a Mississippi Mud Miracle Medicine show. Nerf dueling is going to be one of the little events we're going to do. And the Nerf guns look like steampunk style guns. They've all been punked out. Also going to have a fashion show to show off what people can do on their own to make steampunk costumes. And a lot of people think it's expensive. It doesn't have to be. And a facial hair contest. So you can get the biggest beard, biggest mustache. I would lose. Fire jugglers. And those are going to be kind of repeating throughout the day on both days. So we'll have something going on at any given half hour to keep people kind of, curious. And then we also have a set of different seminars going on throughout Saturday and Sunday that are also going to be free to the public. So there's a lot that people can do without having to spend money. There's also some events like the hot air balloon rides that, for a premium, you get to do something you wouldn't normally get to do almost ever in this part of the country. Exactly. And the best way to find out more about those specifics is to get onto our website.
Yeah.
And that is bigriversteampunkfestival.com. It's a long one, but and we'll keep that updated daily, as things change.
Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned, all the entertainment and that sort of thing, kind of everything kind of with that Victorian era kind of a style to it, I would suppose. Yeah, we actually had one steampunk aficionado call us and go, well, what time is it? It's going to happen between 10 and 5 on Saturday and Sunday. No. What time period? Because they get into those. There are certain steampunk conventions, like on the East Coast, where they go, we're only going to do things related to 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And we're like, ours is pretty much 1880 through 1910. Yeah. And that's a good kind of set of time because, we're talking about things that would be inspired by steam-powered machines, which for Hannibal is perfect because that fits in with our Gilded Age. We're a very industrialized town. We are a great natural fit for this kind of event. Yeah, we've been saying that from the very beginning. I mean, to celebrate the Gilded Age, which was a golden age, if you will, in the city of Hannibal as far as manufacturing and the very things, some of the very things that the steampunk folks celebrate. And people who thought the sky was the limit, we could do anything with technology we want. It's just our little metallic ball of clay to mold in sorts, and that's also when we seem to be the most ambitious as a community. Yeah, and as you say, as you mentioned a moment ago, asking the question, what if instead of making the turn toward electricity, electrical power, that sort of thing, we had made the turn toward steam power for everything? And that's where we get the steampunk. Lisa was talking about somebody that had made it look like they had a computer that it was run the regular way, but they had set it up to where it looked like it was running on steam power. Oh yeah, they replaced what they call a conventional IBM keyboard with typewriter keys and brass fittings, and even on the computer screen itself, relocated the fans so you could actually enclose it in a brass frame, and it's amazing stuff. It's not something you can buy off the shelf. That's what is interesting about steampunk, and what gets people so excited about it is that it really is a do-it-yourself kind of thing.
And at the same time, it's not limiting. Even steampunk has its own sub-genres. There's ones that people get really into clock gears and the mechanisms of clocks, and that's called gear punk. And then there's diesel punk, which is 1920s, 1930s. What if the combustible engine really ran everything instead of going digital? So it also gives people a reason to kind of relive in their own minds what it would have been like to live back in that period too. So it's a little role play too.
Yeah, definitely. So this is coming up Saturday and Sunday of Labor Day weekend, August 30th and 31st. And once again, if the folks want more information about the Steampunk Festival, how can they get that?
Well, first, I think for information, the best thing is to go to the website, www.bigriversteampunkfestival.com. Also, anyone who has received a issue of Hannibal magazine, and what's funny is that we've already run out of our own copies at the museum, and it's August 5th, which is a good sign. Yes. But definitely, there's a whole layout of what we're going to be doing both those days, and an explanation, a Q&A about steampunk too. That's a great source. Our museum on 200 North Main Street, another good place. You can stop in, or you can call us at 573-248 1819, the year we were founded, in order to go ahead and purchase tickets in advance for some of the events we have, like the hot air balloon ride, the afternoon tea with Queen Victoria, the croquet tournament, treasure hunt, all of those things.
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot going on those 2 days, and a number of ways you can get information on that. Ken Marks, we appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.